In January 1999, 29-year-old schizophrenic Andrew Goldstein was off his medications when he fatally pushed 32-year-old Kendra Webdale onto the track of an oncoming N train at Manhattan's 23rd Street station. Goldstein was ultimately sentenced to 23 years in prison with time off for good behavior. And earlier this week, he was released from prison and transferred to a hospital for evaluation. Doctors are currently deciding what the next steps for Goldstein should be. One likely possibility would put him under Kendra's law, a law which is named after his victim and which, among other things, grants judges the authority to require individuals to undergo psychiatric treatment. In partnership with New York Magazine, the Marshall Project profiled this case and its aftermath in a recent article titled A Turbulent Mind. And with us now to talk about the subject of that article are its authors, Editor-in-Chief Bill Keller and contributing writer John J. Lennon, a current prisoner in Sing Sing Correctional Facility, who joins us by phone. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So, Bill, let me start with you. What led the Marshall Project to this story?
It was actually John's idea. John has been writing off and on for the Marshall Project for several years now. And he sent me a letter saying, first of all, that Andrew Goldstein, who killed Kendra, was now in Sing Sing. He was willing to be interviewed, and that he had a release date coming, all of which seemed like a good reason to do a story on the subject. Because there are certain limits on how much reporting you can do from a prison cell, John suggested that we provide an outside writer to cover the other part of the story, which is Kendra's law and what's become of it over the years.
Right, and we'll talk about all that. But John, let me go to you. First of all, why are you in prison?
I'm serving 28 years to life for murder and selling drugs. Back in 2001, I killed a man on a Brooklyn street, for which I am sorry, and I was pretty immersed in that lifestyle.
So how did you come in contact with Andrew Goldstein?
So I was sort of a facilitator, a prisoner facilitator. Sometimes they, in Sing Sing, they let general population prisoners work with that deals with the seriously mentally ill violent. So we kind of assist the Office of Mental Health Counselors and go to program with them, go out on their unit, sort of coax them to get up in the morning, and kind of like aides. So that's how I met Andrew.
Now, Bill, Andrew spent 19 years in prison. But why did he spend any time in prison at all? After all, I mean, he's a schizophrenic. He was off his medications when he killed Kendra. Wouldn't that mean that he was innocent by reason of insanity?
Well, the short answer is prosecutorial discretion. Prosecutors have a lot of power to decide how to handle a case. In this case, there was no question that he did it. Right. The question was what was going on in his head. And the prosecutors refused to accept a plea deal of not guilty by reason of insanity. And that would have meant he would have spent up to the rest of his life in a psychiatric ward. But the prosecutors wanted that conviction, and they insisted on it. And in the end, they did a plea deal that gave him 23 years.
Do you know how he has responded? Does he respond today to the killing of Kendra?
It's difficult for him to wrap his head around that, as I mentioned in the piece, because the medicated Andrew can't quite identify with psychotic Andrew. It's like two different people. He can't imagine how he did that to Kendra Webdale. And he acknowledges that it's a horrible thing, and he mentioned that he wants to put a wreath on her grave, and it's very difficult for him to sort of wrap his head around that. I mean, the prosecution theory was that he was a predator. Well, I've been around the block, and I've been around a few blocks, and he's not a calculated psychopath. I've been around some of those guys, and I'm not a doctor, but antisocial behavior when you see it. Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty hip to that. This guy's struggling with schizophrenia. Yeah, and it was off his medication.
And in the 19 years that he's been in jail, has he manifested any kind of violence similar to what he did on that subway platform?
He had an urge back in 2003, he told me about an urge where he felt it coming on, walking up the stairs with some cleaning supplies, which I documented in the piece. Also, he told me one time an aide, like I was, in Sullivan, a different prison, well, he was in a different mental ward, that he felt that another aide was trying to help him clean his cell, and he struck the aide in his face just sort of abruptly, and the guy was like, "What the hell are you doing?" And it was kind of diffused in a matter of moments.
So, Bill, Kendra's Law came into effect as a result of the killing. It's named after her.
Yeah.
What is Kendra's Law?
Kendra's Law does a number of things. It creates a kind of safeguard for people who are allowed to be outpatients, but they have, it's done under a court order, and the court approves a treatment program for the patient, and then you're assigned a case manager or a team to manage your case. And the goal is to make sure that people like Andrew Goldstein stay on their medication. The thing that makes it work is a couple of things. One of them is the judicial order tends to make everybody involved pay attention. The other one, and probably the most important thing, is that it puts people like that at the front of the line for treatment, for housing, for ultimately job training and things like that, because they're deemed to be potentially dangerous to themselves or others.
And for how long does it last? I mean, how long is an individual supervised?
There's 16,000 New Yorkers who have gone through this program. Most of them graduate, so to speak, in a year or two, although the court can extend the period indefinitely.
And what is the track record of the people who have gone through Kendra's Law and have gone beyond Kendra's Law?
The research that they've done at the Duke University Medical School suggests that people who have been treated under Kendra's Law are much less likely to end up back in prison, much less likely to be hospitalized, much less likely to commit suicide, much less likely to be arrested, much less likely to be hospitalized. So, I mean, of course, there's no guarantee against the kind of episode that happened on the 23rd Street platform.
I was surprised to read in your article that, in fact, not everybody was for it. And in fact, some people still oppose it. Who are they and why?
Well, there are really two sources of opposition to it or criticism of it. One of them is the civil liberties perspective, that this is deemed to be coercive, although actually the New York Civil Liberties Union succeeded in having the law amended to make sure that people can't be forcibly injected with drugs unless they've been through a very long procedure. But some people are fairly absolutist on civil liberties. The other is, because it puts Kendra's Law participants at the front of the line, and there's a dramatic shortage of resources for the mentally ill, some other people don't get treatment, people who are volunteers.
I see, yeah. So what's the future of Andrew Goldstein? As we said in the introduction, he's under evaluation. What's likely to happen next to him?
Well, that's guesswork to some extent. He will certainly be reviewed as a possible candidate for Kendra's Law. There are options that are more restrictive, including commitment to a psychiatric hospital if he's deemed to be dangerous to himself or others. Given his mostly clear record for 19 years, that seems probably unlikely. They could just let him go on his own recognizance, but given the high profile of the crime, that's unlikely too.
So let me close with this, a question to you, John. From what you know about Andrew, what should New Yorkers think if Andrew is free on the streets of New York? Should New Yorkers that cross his path be worried?
No, I mean, I imagine there would be a knee-jerk reaction. That's the guy. I mean, but I don't think they should be worried. Andrew Goldstein on that day, when he pushed Kendra Webdale, was psychotic. He was off of his medication. Andrew Goldstein has been taking his medication for 19 years straight. In the records, there's no indication that he's ever missed his medication. So, I mean, he saw what can happen, and as difficult as it is for him to be to express the kind of remorse that is palatable for people, he is sorry as much as he can be, and he is taking his medication. I think he'll get on the train like the rest of everybody.
All right.
He'll be fine.
Well, John, thank you so much, and Bill, thank you so much. It's a very interesting story.
Well, thanks for having us.
Thank you.